Good morning again. I think, as you all know, tomorrow is Lahiri Mahasaya's birthday, and Thursday was his Mahasamadhi. We heard that you all had a nice celebration here that night. We came in afterwards, and there were very nice vibrations here of devotion, so that was very sweet. I wanted to begin with a reading from Autobiography of a Yogi about Lahiri Mahasaya, and then go from there. In case he is not familiar to any of you, he is our guru's guru. And let's see. We know Param Guru, right? Sri Yukteswarji being Param Guru, which is grandfather guru. This is great-grandfather guru. I believe is Upaguru, is the Sanskrit name for it, but the actual name for it is Lahiri Mahasayaji. So this is related by a disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya, Swami Kebalananda, and he was Master's Sanskrit tutor. And it was wonderful because Master's father was trying to help Master remain in the world because he had just run to the Himalayas and been caught by Ananta and brought back to Calcutta. And so Master's father, as a disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya, said, here's another disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya. Maybe he can help you see perhaps how to balance your spiritual desires with your worldly responsibilities. And Master said that Swami Kebalanandaji only fanned the flames of his ardor, of his desire for God. But he's speaking of Lahiri Mahasaya. Rarely fortunate, I was able to remain near Lahiri Mahasaya for 10 years. His Benares home was my nightly goal of pilgrimage. The Guru was always present in a small front parlor on the first floor. As he sat in lotus posture on a backless wooden seat, his disciples garlanded him in a semicircle. His eyes sparkled and danced in the joy of the divine. They were ever half closed, peering through the inner telescopic orb into a sphere of eternal bliss. He seldom spoke at length. Occasionally his gaze would focus on a student in need of help. Healing words poured then like an avalanche of light. An indescribable peace blossomed within me at the Master's glance. I was permeated with his fragrance as though from a lotus of infinity. To be with him, even without exchanging a word for days, was experience which changed my entire being. If any invisible barrier rose in the path of my concentration, I would meditate at the Guru's feet. There, the most tenuous states came easily within my grasp. Such perceptions eluded me in the presence of lesser teachers. The Master was a living temple of God, whose secret doors were open to all disciples through devotion. Lahiri Mahasaya was no bookish interpreter of the scriptures. Effortlessly he dipped into the divine library. Foam of words and spray of thoughts gushed from the fountain of his omniscience. He had the wondrous clavis which unlocked the profound philosophical science embedded ages ago in the Vedas. If asked to explain the different planes of consciousness mentioned in the ancient texts, he would smilingly assent. I will undergo those states and presently tell you what I perceive. He was thus diametrically unlike the teachers who commit scripture to memory and then give forth unrealized abstractions. Please expound the holy stanzas as the meaning occurs to you. The taciturn, which means, quiet, guru, often gave this instruction to a nearby disciple. I will guide your thoughts, that the right interpretation be uttered. In this way, many of Lahiri Mahasaya's perceptions came to be recorded with voluminous commentaries by various students. The Master never counseled slavish belief. Words are only shells, he said. Win conviction of God's presence through your own joyous contact in meditation. No matter what the disciple's problem, the Guru advised Kriya Yoga for its solution. The yogic key will not lose its efficiency when I am no longer present in the body to guide you. This technique cannot be bound, filed, and forgotten in the manner of theoretical inspirations. Continue ceaselessly on your path to liberation through Kriya, whose power lies in practice. I myself consider Kriya the most effective device of salvation through self-effort ever to be evolved in man's search for the infinite, Kebalananda concluded with this earnest testimonial. Through its use, the omnipotent God, hidden in all men, became visibly incarnated in the flesh of Lahiri Mahasaya and a number of his disciples. It's thrilling to read those words, or hear those words from Swami Kebalananda, which were uttered so many years ago. I can't tell exactly, but I would say probably 1908 or something like that, because, based on Master's age at the time. And yet, they could be so relevant for us today. On the one hand, we know that Lahiri Mahasaya was called by Babaji to the Himalayas, and many of you have been to Babaji's cave, and if you haven't yet, then don't worry, we're going again. Please come along. But in between, before that, we're going to Sri Yukteswar's seaside hermitage in Puri. That's coming up in February, so mark your calendars for that. That Lahiri Mahasaya, at the time of becoming a disciple, was 33 years old, was married, had 2 sons. I think he ended up having a total of 5 children, several daughters as well. And he was a government accountant. And so all accountants rejoice that he, this was he went to Raniket anyway. I'm sure you know the story of that. But he was in Benares most of his life. He was a Bengali, but living in Benares. He was also of the infinite, I should say. He was more than Bengali. He was infinite. All the masters are, and they just temporarily align themselves with a particular place and culture and so on. Now, we know that Lahiri Mahasaya, as a householder, Babaji said that was the deep reason why you didn't meet me until this time in your life, when you were already married and had worldly responsibilities, so that you would, as a householder, be a great yogi and inspire other householders. He was already a great yogi, but he was reawakened to that by Babaji. And the story is in there. All those chapters of their time together are so thrilling. And to hear Master relate it in one of his audio recordings is also wonderful. Now, we have to understand that Babaji gave us Lahiri Mahasaya as an example, and Lahiri Mahasaya gave himself as an example for a very important reason, many reasons, one of which is that at this time in history, which is the present time, it can't be history yet, it's still happening, that this time on the earth, I should say, we are in a new age. And in this age, Dwapara Yuga, as many of you know, as Sri Yukteswarji said, it is time for people on the spiritual search, seriously on the spiritual search, to also be living in the world, in society in general. Lahiri Mahasaya, in a way, was the first. Now, this can seem innovative, new. And in fact, Babaji was essentially saying that by saying to Lahiri Mahasaya, go back. And Lahiri Mahasaya meeting Babaji and being with this band of disciples in the Himalayas, I mean, what an attraction. When he said, go back now to your family and job, did Lahiri Mahasaya say, okay, no problem, parvaila, I'll just go? Because he's a great yogi? No! He said, oh, Babaji, please. He said, how remote seemed my family, my office, and let me stay here with you. And he said, your duty is to return. So we can relate to that, especially if you've gone on pilgrimage to the Himalayas. You see people checking out Babaji's cave and then looking at the real estate listings for caves nearby. Maybe I could move into a, 1 BHK next door and just, But, that isn't our dharma in this life, which is to say, that will not liberate us as quickly. Being in the cave will not liberate us as quickly as being where we are right now. That's the point. It is not our punishment, and it is not our lack of spirituality that places us in the world, in the family, in the office, instead of in the mountains. It is rather two things. It is our own, many things, but two of those things are our own spiritual need to be in balance, to understand how to live this life for ourselves and to gain lessons that you can more easily gain among other people, among the sort of modern life and so on, currently modern life. It's funny listening to this from so many years ago, and that then, in 1861, when he met Babaji, was the modern life then. With trains and all kinds of other fancy inventions. And now we have, Android and so on, iPhones. But in 100 years, people will just laugh at those things. And they'll be in museums. I'm serious. Even Ananda Village celebrating its 50th anniversary, we realized that according to the local government laws, anything that we dug up at Ananda Village from the past would be considered an archaeological excavation. It's anything older than 50 years is the business of archaeologists. And so the other reason why we are living this life is because we are a part of their mission. If Lahiri Mahasaya took initiation from Babaji and then lived in the world among others and then left and that was it, then what kind of teaching would that be? It has to go on. There have to be others, other yogis living in the world, balancing their different responsibilities and so on, for this teaching, for this lesson, for this example, and for this balance to continue. And so we are a part of that mission. And so don't forget that. It may not seem like it at times when you're submitting your resume left and right saying, I want to be a part of the mission. Hire me so I can have a job and then also be a yogi. It may seem like when everyone is saying, what's the matter with you? Don't be surprised. That is the common worldly response to the spiritual person. This is part of what makes us heroes. You may remember self-confidence, the affirmation. What does it matter, the opinions of others? Stick to the truth. The point is that when they come around to the truth, they will see that this is the right way to live. They won't necessarily thank you for all those years of patience, but they will see, especially if there's a crisis, because everybody is very confident in themselves when everything is going well, because it seems to justify all of their attitudes. But as soon as things go wrong, suddenly they turn to the scriptures. And suddenly they begin praying. And sometimes they see that, my gosh, this is what you've been doing all along. Now, just to continue that for one moment, you have to be true to what's in your heart. You have to be true to the path as you understand it. You have Lahiri Mahasaya as the example to say you don't have to go to the cave. In fact, you shouldn't go to the cave. You should visit the cave. But you shouldn't try to move into the cave, and you certainly shouldn't feel badly about not being in the cave, that, it's because I'm so full of worldly karma that I had to be on this earth. Do you think in this worldly life, do you think Lahiri Mahasaya was full of worldly karma? He was an avatar. He didn't have karma to work out, but he was part of this mission. And in some ways, he was the initiator of the mission, in a way, in the world, meaning Christ and Babaji met in the boardroom and worked all these things out for this plan and this rollout. But then Lahiri Mahasaya was the first one to be there and to initiate that. Remember, he was the one who named Kriya, Kriya. If ever you say Kriya, read the word Kriya, practice Kriya, that word is his. So instantly he's connected to you. If you are in the path of Kriya Yoga, level 1, he's the one who named it. We added the level 1. But other than that, he's the one who gave it its name. So daily, he's with you. And he said that, I am ever with those who practice Kriya. So don't think of him as far off and uninterested. He's too busy having fun with Babaji and the other avatars to take your call. He's not. In fact, he's saying, I keep calling. It keeps ringing out. He's calling us. You see? So, when people regard all of this thing that you're doing as fanaticism and so on, you should say, fanaticism? My God, I'm not in the cave. I'm not in sannyas vows. It's quite a bit for me to be able to do all of these worldly responsibilities and so on now that I'm on the path. So, this is actually quite balanced, but no. They may not see it that way. As I was sharing with some of you in a class recently, Master said, this world was not made for producing children and selfish hunting for money. Millions have thought that. Millions have gone away. So if somebody comes to you and says, this world is made for selfish hunting for money, and also please produce some grandchildren for me, or whatever it is, just say, millions have thought that. Don't say the rest of it, but you can think it. You can know, listen, why be shocked? Statistically, when you see someone, they are probably one out of those millions. There is a 990, whatever it is, chance, 999,999 chance that they will say that. That's the way it looks. And that's the way it will look until life after life, we start to develop, as Master writes in Autobiography of a Yogi, a sense of anguishing monotony. This is sometimes why you see people get on the spiritual path very young, or when they have just one little touch of suffering in their life, just a little heartbreak. It happened to me in college. I had a little heartbreak, and I unconsciously, it wasn't conscious at all, believe me, I was conscious of the heartbreak, but all the rest I didn't know. But it basically made me give up on this world. Not on life, not on truth, not on happiness, but on finding those in this world. Because, and again, that wasn't a conscious conclusion, but I started to say, what is it for? Just like that song, what is it for? If this could happen, it started to become clear to me that worldly happiness is just sort of like weather. You have it some days, you don't have it other days. You have enough sun, you have too much sun. You have a little rain, you have too much rain, and you'd have no control over it. I have the possibility of controlling myself. But even that is not joyful enough, just to be alone, just to be on my own. And so anyway, luckily, as I was pondering these things, someone put Autobiography of a Yogi into my hand. It was basically the same week, so I was fortunate. But that was after years of struggle. So anyway, the point is that Lahiri Mahasaya was giving us this example. Sri Yukteswarji too, in a way. Remember, yes, Swami Sri Yukteswar, he was a Swami. But when he was made a Swami by Babaji, saying, hello, Swamiji, that was his initiation right there, 2 words, he was married at the time. Sri Yukteswarji was married and had a daughter. And so I don't think Babaji didn't know that. Now, Sri Yukteswarji didn't use the title Swami until after his wife's passing, which I think was 12 or 14 years later, something like that. But still, he too was showing us, because there was this thought, to be truly spiritual, you must be a sannyasi. And if you can't be a sannyasi, at least dress in orange, so you will look like a sannyasi. You see, whether you are a sannyasi or not is a matter of the heart. It's a matter of your attitude. It is not a matter of what you look like. Prasanna was sharing this with us too, because he was saying at Ananda village, I've realized that saints do not always wear blue. And that was sort of a commentary on the Nayaswami order and people wearing blue and so on, that there are saints everywhere. And it's not that the saints were wearing yellow or white, other parts of the renunciate order. There were all kinds of saints he met that were just looked like normal people. But they weren't normal. any more than any of you are normal. You're not. You're better than normal. And so that sense of you have to be fully renounced to be on the spiritual path, to be very spiritual, to be a real devotee, that's what Lahiri Mahasaya was breaking. This was not really new in India's history. If you go back far enough, you find that all the great spiritual teachers were married and so on, and some had families and the like. It wasn't considered to be in any way in opposition to the spiritual path. But then we went through Kali Yuga, and in Kali Yuga, if you're on the spiritual path, you have to focus. You have to choose. Am I going to live in the world? No, I'm on the spiritual path, so I have to live away. Because the world at that time is so heavy, is so dark, is so gross. I don't mean gross, I just mean just sort of matter-bound. That's the pervading consciousness of Kali Yuga, is that matter is the only reality. And so to say, well, I live with a spiritual attitude is not possible, because people can't even feel, what does the word attitude even mean? And I have energy. What is energy? I mean, if there's no electricity, how can you say what energy is? I mean, we can say prana, and it's in the scriptures, but you just have to look up in your Sanskrit dictionary, what does prana mean? Oh, it means prana. Okay, fine. You see, you can't even say the word energy at that time. And so people had to focus. And so because we've come out of that in recent history and we look to the past, this is one of the problems of the ascending yuga. Everybody thinks it's so great to be in an upward yuga. Now everything's going to get better and better. We used to be in a dark age. Now we're in the age of energy, and things are just ascending. They're rising more and more. It's true. It's nice. It's more hopeful than perhaps in the descending period. But the price we pay for that is that all we can look to is recent history, just in general. And recent history is darker, is less enlightened. If you go far enough back into the earlier ages, then you can get more. But at the time of when the Gita was written and before. But that's hard to access. Recent history doesn't give us a lot of solutions. We're creating them ourselves. So in a way, we're flying blind. In the descending yuga, when they look back to recent times, it was a more enlightened age than it is now. And so in a certain way, it's easier to access that wisdom and be guided by it. The problem is, because it's a descending age, you don't care. You don't want the wisdom. So you really can't ever win. It's best to just get into God and be free. That's the way out. Now, in this this life of Lahiri Mahasaya, we have to also take heart that we are in the right place. If Lahiri Mahasaya met Babaji at the age of 33 and Babaji said that's the right timing, I don't know if Lahiri Mahasaya said, oops, if only I had known, I would not have married and had the kids. And Babaji said, yes, I know. That's why you weren't told. And so who knows? But we see it all the time on the spiritual path. People come to the path and say, oh, rats, is it too late to sort of give my kids over to someone else and to change into, orange and run off? Because I wish I had known better. The thing is, that is not the right attitude. God knew that you were destined for the spiritual path before you were born in the last life. In this life he knew. Master knew. And so he said, look, you have to come to the path at the right time. It is the right time. Your present circumstances are the right circumstances. Now, what if you feel trapped in a job where the boss is always asking you to do adharmic, I grew up in America where we say adharmic, but of course it's adharmic, where you to do wrong things, false things. I don't say, well, that's the perfect circumstance for you. It may be that you need to come out of that job. But it may be that that job is there to motivate you, that situation. Pain is unpleasant and unfortunately, therefore, is very effective as a motivator. Because it makes us want to get away from it. It's God saying, come on, come on. Either come out of this situation, why are you still there? Or, if you can't come out of it, because it would create too much disruption in your life or in the lives of others, then come out of it inside. Find a way to be calm. I have to admit, I was struggling with this the other day. I had a fever, and I was at a place, and I was waiting to meet somebody, and they said, oh, no, he'll be back in an hour. He's just gone to lunch. And so then after an hour and a half, I came back again. They said, oh, actually, no, he's gone for a meeting. Meeting? He had a meeting. I'm the meeting. And and then they said, no, he's very busy in the meeting. And then they said to each other in Tamil, thinking I wouldn't know, or maybe not thinking that, but that I keep calling, but the line is busy. It's like, oh, so he's in the meeting on the phone, and the very important, And finally, I just think they couldn't reach him. So finally he came, and then anyway, it was a long thing. But my peace of mind was threatened. Why? Because there was very little peace of mind to begin with. And so with the fever, with everything else, we'd just gotten back from Delhi and just trying to reintegrate into life without missing a beat. I would have liked to miss a few beats, but I was just beaten, just going right back into it. And the thought, Master's words came into my head. You must stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. And I was thinking, is this a breaking world? I've waited an hour and a half on my phone happily, talking to people, trying to, I'm not feeling all that well, but I have all my, limbs are still attached, and, I'm still breathing. Does this really count? I'm waiting in an AC place. Is this really a breaking world? Because I am shaken. I am not unshaken. And this doesn't seem to qualify as even a breaking world. So that was enough to kind of help me get back into place and get myself together enough to be polite and to reintegrate inside. You see, we have to hide sometimes in our inner cave. You can always be in the cave inside. Just like that one yogi said to Master. He said, his wife, this saint who was talking to Master, his own wife was very materialistic. But the man said, but I have escaped her. She doesn't know where I am. And he didn't mean that, he had fled to Tinagar and she was, stuck somewhere. It was that inwardly he had escaped her. And that's important to remember, because it isn't even other people we are trying to escape. Because if they are bothering us, it's something in us that's reacting. Because you could imagine a saint in the same situation saying, oh, I'm sorry you're so angry, and after all that shouting, your throat must be sore. Let me get you some lemon ginger something. You see, just being very patient. See how tolerant when a child is like, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh," and the mother says, that's okay, go ahead. I know, you can run off. I know you'll be hungry in an hour and come back. And so they just put up with it calmly. And so Divine Mother, the Masters, do the same with us, and we should strive to follow their example. You see, why? Because then we can be excellent yogis and saints. See how patient I was in the face of that. There was a wonderful thing, the test of a saint, and I forgot to mention it in the class. I've had this fever for longer than just a day, so anyway, I think it's over now. But I realized just now I forgot to make this point in this class that we've been having, that a saint was being tested by an angel, and I'm not going to go through the whole story. And how did he test him? Did he cut off his arm and say, see, be calm with that? No. Did he empty his bank account? No. Did he invite his relatives over? No. The strength of the test that this angel prepared for this saint was that the saint came and gave him food, and the angel took it and threw it on the ground and said, that's terrible. And the saint said, I'm sorry, I'll make you something else. And that was all he needed to do to pass the test to prove that he was a saint. All, I say, it was quite a lot. But this also shows us that these are the tests we must face. They are tests worthy of saints. They are tests trying to make us into saints. One definition of a saint is one who has become one with God realization. But another definition of a saint, equally valid, Swamiji said, is one seriously striving to attain such a state. If you are engaging daily in spiritual activities under the guidance of your guru, he said that you should consider yourself a saint, not as a saint graduate, but a saint in school. Better to be in saint school. And if someone says, what is your focus? What is your speciality? You say, I am studying to be a saint. In fact, that was what was meant to be sort of the mocking nickname that I had when I was in graduate school. This one Russian fellow was in the habit of giving everybody nicknames, and some of them were very openly unflattering. And mine was too, I think, in his mind, but it was the saint. And I thought, I will take it, not because I felt like a saint, but because that's what I wanted to become. And so that's what we're here to do. And that's what Lahiri Mahasaya was showing us we can do, not in big ways. He did not have a big world impact at the time. He did, obviously, because here we all are talking about him more than 100 years later, so he did. But it wasn't obvious at first. People even tried to create an organization around him and to proponent, that's not a verb, to propel doesn't sound right, but anyway, something big, to push out into the world him as, what was it, Kashi Baba, as the saint of Benares and so on. And he said no. He told them no, and he made them stop. He said, let the fragrance of Kriya spread gently, gradually, to those who are receptive. And think about it. His Gita discourses on his balcony that you read about later, and you imagine sort of, there's Babaji creating extra universes just for fun while he's having his morning coffee. And now here's Lahiri Mahasaya, his great disciple, and there are maybe 10 people there at most. Very few. However, we must also add that 2 of Lahiri Mahasaya's disciples were fully liberated, which is to say that they were avatars. Or they became fully liberated in that life, who knows. But the point is that when you're dealing with fully liberated, it's fully liberated. And so they were the only 2, by the way, besides this line of gurus who were fully liberated, of all the saints mentioned in Autobiography of a Yogi. And they were his disciples. And there were many more beyond that were liberated. Maybe not yet fully, but it's enough. That's what we're trying to get to. So you can also assess the greatness of the Guru by all of his disciples and their spiritual stature. In fact, it was sweet. We were talking about Swami Kriyananda, and he was giving a lecture in Delhi in 2008 or something like that at the Chinmayananda mission. And after he spoke, the man who spoke after, who had invited him, Swami Nikalananda, he said, you can tell the greatness of Paramhansa Yogananda by the humility and the wisdom of Swami Kriyananda. You see, this is how we get to know these masters, is through whatever we can of our own experience. Someone said that to me. They were asking me to tell them about Swamiji's life, and he asked very specific questions, and we did our best to answer them, myself and someone else. And at the end he said, I didn't really have much of an opinion about Swami Yogananda ji. It wasn't that he didn't have an opinion, he just didn't think about him much. He said, but after hearing how great Swamiji was in the test that he faced, now I want to read Autobiography of a Yogi. You see, it's by their fruits ye shall know them. That's the proof. How you behave is the proof of your inner realization and of the path that you're on. That's what convinced me to join Ananda. I met all these bright souls, and I thought, there is no way that you could all fake this. That, wait, everyone, just acting like monsters like we do in our normal lives. Wait, guest is coming. Hello. I knew it could not be that way. That somebody somewhere would slip. And more than that, it was the brightness in their eyes, and more than that, it was the familiarity, not necessarily personally, but with the vibration. And you can have the same experience that Swami Kebalananda was describing, how when he would see Lahiri Mahasaya, he would feel calmed. Master said, he writes, if I entered my guru's ashram in an indifferent or worried state of mind, my attitude imperceptibly changed. He said, a healing calm descended upon me at the mere sight of my Guru. And we can have this experience of, we're feeling worried, we open Autobiography of a Yogi to a random page, and just being with Master, it helps us to feel, okay, I'm not alone, and we can be reconnected. We can come into the center, come into the temple, and feel not only the calm, but also the upliftment, as Swami Kebalananda was saying, that I had a hard time accessing these subtle states of meditation, but in my Guru's presence they were easily within my grasp. And so the same way for us, sometimes it's easy to meditate in the temple longer, not just because other people are there, and if you got up and went, that's enough, they would all notice, so I'd better stick it out. But I hope it's more than that. But even that's good enough. But whatever it takes to go deeper. And so, but also we had that experience with Swamiji, and we can have that experience right now. Not in the body, but there are so many videos. Lahiri Mahasaya said to disciples who grieved that they were not with him physically, he said, why come to view this bag of bones when I am ever within sight of your kutastha? Something like that, he said. And so it's the same for us, but we can say, yeah, but my kutastha, I'm still having a little trouble with it. And so then Swamiji said, well, just go to YouTube then. I am ever within range of your YouTube, of your click. You see? Master too, that's all it takes. And I mean that partly humorously, partly practically, but also it is the idea of what it will be like when we can get this kutastha working better. It really will be that simple. And so we should take the immediate experience and try to expand it to say, and that's what it will be for me as I grow. Even now it is coming. In this way, we bring these things closer rather than, no, I tried the kutastha, nothing. I don't know if it'll ever happen. That just pushes it away. You see? Master said that. Fear keeps God away. Self-criticism keeps God away. Doubt keeps God away. And so let's keep him close. So remember these things, that Lahiri Mahasaya came for you, not just for his immediate generation of disciples, not even for his disciples' disciples, but his disciples' disciples' disciples, and on. And he gave us this gift of Kriya Yoga. Master gave him the title, Yogi-Avatar. And you may remember this from Autobiography of a Yogi. Yogi-Avatar and Jnana-Avatar, and of course Babaji Mahavatar. But sometimes we can wonder, well, why? Sri Yukteswar got the name Jnana-Avatar, no question. We understand why. You only have to read a paragraph of Autobiography of a Yogi about Sri Yukteswar, and you get it. But Lahiri Mahasaya, Yogi-Avatar, well, we can theorize about that, sort of like, well, because yoga, incarnation of yoga. If you just said to somebody, my Lahiri Mahasaya was the incarnation of yoga, they'll just be imagining that he sort of, walked around like this or something. It's not asana avatar. But you might wonder, well, gosh, I wonder why Master gave him that title. Well, luckily Master wrote the answer. I gave Lahiri the title of Yogi-Avatar because in him and through him the highest form of yoga, or step-by-step scientific union with God, has been handed down to the world. God can be known through inner wisdom, not book learning, and through royal yogic union of soul and spirit by different methods of consciously pursued meditation, not blind meditation. It is by God manifesting karma, action, and not by following any moral but God-obliterating action that spirit is revealed. By inner soul-touching devotion, and not by holy rolling, muscle contorting, insincere devotion, or blind devotion, one can know God. Lahiri thus deserves the title Yogi-Avatar, one of the greatest incarnations of God which descended in flesh. From flesh he ascended to complete realization of spirit by step-by-step methods of realization. All human beings are his children, in whom God is potentially present in his fullness. That is why Lahiri Mahasaya pointed the actual way by which each deluded man could bring out his potential godhood into distinct consciousness and reclaim his hidden godhood, becoming one with him. God bless you.